All right, let's do it. By the way, I'm typically in a third grade classroom this time of the year, so got to get you. About to say, some of you people in here would fit right in probably. For those that don't know, I've been on television here since about the Civil War. I came here in 1979, which is like remarkable. But anyway, we're going to zip through a lot of stuff, and we'll talk mainly about April 27th. Let me just say this, though. Lately, my heart has been more on this. I mean, we've had way too much loss of life. Hey, I'm afraid of one thing. You know what it is? That's it. I'm horrified. I'll never forget this. During Hurricane Opal, this was in 1995, a long time ago, but we had a very significant, it was a Category 3 at the time of landfall, hurricane come up the eastern side of the state. And my colleague and my mentor for so long was J.B. Elliott. J.B. worked for the National Weather Service in Birmingham for 37 years, I think, and we hired him after he retired. We were standing outside the studios up on Red Mountain, and typically with tropical systems, there's not much lightning, but wow, we were so close, you know, you can feel the hair coming up, and I was scared to death. But this 12-year-old girl was killed at Gulf Shores 3 years ago. When you start to learn who these people are and the suffering, and you know, this doesn't get all the publicity like tornadoes. Tornadoes, the sexy stuff. Everybody talks about that. But she was killed at Gulf Shores. Her family's from Arkansas. This young man was killed on the Alabama Gulf Coast this summer by lightning. And we just don't respect it at all. And, you know, what we're trying to teach the kids is when you hear thunder, get in. It's not that hard. When you hear thunder, get in. And the rule we like for those that have the right instrumentation, and I would assume most all of you have good apps on your phone, right? Everybody in this room should have a good lightning app on your phone. What's the rule? What's the radius? How many miles? Anybody know? We like 8, and I know that there's different opinions on this. We like 8 miles. If there's lightning within 8 miles, that's when you've got to stop. Our son played, the youngest son played baseball for years. I was always the guy at the park that stopped everything. Because I told the other coach, y'all can play out here all stinking day. My guys are in. So 8 miles is the rule. I've stopped a Southeastern Conference football game. That's some power. For those that don't know, I do weather support at the University of Alabama for their home games in Tuscaloosa. We stopped a game down there a few years ago. We had lightning within 7 miles. And the game was stopped. Players went in the locker room. Fans were told to go in the concourse. But anyway, the main reason I'm here today is to talk about thunderstorms and this kind of stuff. This was a storm back in the spring. This storm is severe because of the nature of large hail and damaging wind. Everybody in this room knows what makes a storm severe, right? The winds have to be how many miles per hour? Say it. 58. Thanks for playing. 58 miles per hour. The hail has to be what size and diameter? It used to be 3/4 of an inch. Now it's 1 inch. The criteria is 1 inch. That was changed about 7 years ago. So to be severe, a storm has to have 58 mile per hour winds or greater, or hail 1 inch in diameter or larger. Storm spotting 101, what's that? Bingo, thanks for playing. Wall cloud. One of the things we encourage everybody to do, I don't care what you do for a living, is to be trained in spotting. We typically do most of our classes in the spring. Brian Peters, who was the WCM at the Weather Service in Birmingham for years, has worked for us now for about 12 years. But that's a wall cloud. And of course, some wall clouds produce these, tornadoes. And we live in a state where they happen. And before I even talk about April 27th, all it takes is how many? 1. If that sucker comes down your street, that's your April 27th. But let's go back to April 27th, 2011 by the numbers. I'm a numbers guy. When I was in school, I was not good in reading comprehension. My writing was not good. I was not good at history and some of these other things, but I could work those stinking math problems. The numbers that day, we had 62 tornadoes. This is not unprecedented. And by the way, this is in our state. This is not counting the other ones in adjacent states. We had 62 in one day. A good analog to this was April 3rd, 1974. That was before a lot of you here were born. All right, April 3rd of 74. I was a senior in high school. That night, we had 80 fatalities in the state, a rash of very violent tornadoes. Anybody here from Marion County, Alabama? Raise that hand, Matthew. So what town was wiped out that night almost? You got that right. Anybody that lives up there will tell you about, those that remember will tell you about that day and that night. The tornado came through at night. That was an EF5, and I will say to this day, I believe that is the most violent tornado in modern history in our state. The Guin tornado of April 3rd, 1974. Had another analog to this, March 21st, 1932. These seem to happen about every 40 years. That's why I call them generational. And, you know, this is not unprecedented. Next time we have a day like this, I'll be at Elmwood Cemetery. I'm not going to be around, okay? But listen, like I say, how many does it take? One! And that sucker comes down your street, that's your April 27th. This next number is unacceptable. Nobody in this room should accept that number. 252 people died that day. That is insanity. And I didn't even talk about this day for 6 months. I had nothing to say. I didn't know what to say. I went through every phase of the grieving process. I went through some anger phases, depressive phases. These are my people and it happened on my watch. And if you tell me one day in my career that many people would die from weather in one day, I'd say you're crazy as a lunatic. But it happened. And we've got to find out what happened. And we're starting to get a lot of answers. And let me kind of give you a little word about this day that we've learned. On this day, we were pretty good at physical science. Every one of those tornadoes, all 62, there was an excellent warning. The physical science couldn't be any better, which is what I do. But you know what we missed? We have no skill in social science. And that's where we fouled it up. And I think that's why a lot of you are here today. I have no training in human behavior, in social science, none. And so we've got some work to do. You've got work to do, and we've got work to do. We had 2 rounds of severe storms on that day. We had a morning round, and the morning round was really not forecast that well in advance. We didn't expect the morning to be that bad. 5 people died that morning, and 250,000 people had no power. And that really boogered up things in the afternoon. That did not bode well for what happened later in the day. The morning event would have been a disaster in itself, with 5 people losing their life. But then, of course, it got rough in the afternoon. And again, these warnings were just absolutely excellent. The average lead time, 15 to 45 minutes. And we often can't provide a lead time anywhere close to that. Here's a map of all of the tornadoes. Where are you guys from? Around here somewhere? Springville, St. Clair County. Madison, Alabama. I spoke to Madison Academy here recently up there. But listen, no matter where you are probably close to one of these. You know the scale, the enhanced Fujita scale. I actually met Dr. Fujita once when I was young. He came to review some of the damage from the 1977 Birmingham EF5. Now back then it wasn't called the EF scale, it was the F scale. Some of the engineers determined that Dr. Fujita's original scale was off a little bit, and it's been slightly adjusted. Now it's the enhanced Fujita scale. We have 3 5s. 2 are side by side in Matts County over here. How'd you get that draw? Goodness. Number 41 hit Smithville, Mississippi. That was the big story with that one. Number 38 hit Hackleburg and Phil Campbell. Came on up into a Limestone and Madison counties. We had an EF5 over here in DeKalb County. And by the way, tornadoes do happen in mountainous areas. On this date, in 1989, Huntsville took a brutal hit. 4:30 in the afternoon, there was no warning for that tornado. We had no Doppler radar back then. In fact, if you go to YouTube, you can see the coverage of that day. It was very primitive, but you can see how that tornado traversed the ridges in Huntsville and how it didn't matter. Elevation has nothing to do with these large, violent tornadoes. It doesn't protect you. Let me pick number 37. Anybody from Coleman here? All right. Well, I got good things to say about Coleman. This is the EF4, and this was the first tornado of the afternoon, and this is graphic violence. I have no joy in looking at this. A lot of people sit back and watch this stuff on YouTube. I have no interest in that. I've seen enough. We know enough to do the research we had to do, but it's all there if you'd like to see it sometime. This is live on television. This is an EF4 coming through a town of 25,000 people. And this is a success story. The system worked. It worked the way it should work. There was an excellent tornado warning issued before this thing got into town. The warning was issued almost 30 minutes before it got into town. You had 30 minutes to do something. And people in Coleman County, they generally knew how to get the warning. And they turned on the TV, and there it is. This is no radar. This is it. We've learned that people don't do much when they look at radar, but they will do something when you can show them this. And they knew where to go when they got there. We called the Coleman Regional Medical Center after this came through, and they said that nobody had died. which was stunning. We thought there would be loss of life here. And they said that really we don't have any serious injuries. All of the injuries are relatively minor, which was just remarkable. But this is the way that it should work. If you stay with this thing long enough, you can see it crossing US 31. By the way, that's a multiple vortex tornado. This will cross US 31, which is the main north-south drag through Cullman. Debris begins to fly when it hits the First Baptist Church, the courthouse, the old courthouse right across the street. And again, to save time, I'm not going to go all the way through that. But again, that's up on YouTube if you want to watch it sometime. This is Tuscaloosa, and I really have no joy in this. This is the debris ball on radar. That's a camera that's on top of the Tuscaloosa County Courthouse. And again, on this day, these cameras made this huge difference. That's an EF4 tornado coming through the southern part of the city of Tuscaloosa, coming through Rosedale Courts at the time. This is a government housing community. We did a very poor job of reaching low-income families, and shame on us for that. We've got to do better. In addition to all the elevated cameras and fixed cameras like this, we had folks on the ground. John Brown and Mike Wilhelm had this tremendous video down low. They have a servant's heart. They know how to do this right. They've been doing this for a long time. They're safe. The tornado is moving away from them. And again, I don't like to watch this. Some of you know my backstory. My father abandoned me when I was 7 years old. He left in the middle of the night. I'm a fatherless child. And it was me and my mom growing up, and my father never paid a dime of child support, and we were broke. And I lived in Greenville, which is in South Alabama between Montgomery and Mobile and Butler County. We moved here when I started 5th grade, didn't know anybody. And there were some wonderful people that loved us and encouraged us and helped us. And so this is somewhat of a special place. And watching this on this day was horrifying. I had no time to get caught up in the emotion of the moment. You don't have time to do that. You do that later. But a lot of the debris that you see being lofted would fall from the sky over Birmingham later that day. It was horrifying. Parts of people's lives, their homes, furniture, small animals. It was absolutely horrifying. But here's some of the damage the next day. We flew all the damage paths. And again, all this is up on YouTube if you want to go back and watch it sometime. This is Tuscaloosa. And in every business and every house down there, there was a safe place. In Tuscaloosa alone, 53 people died. And in the city of Tuscaloosa did a very good job of doing GIS with where the bodies were found. And in all 53 cases, they were within walking distance of a safe place. So my charge to the social scientists, what in the world happened? Did we screw up? What happened? We thought we did everything we could do. In the weather community, in the weather enterprise, this was our finest day, this was our worst day. But this is all that matters. Danielle Downs was 2 weeks away from graduating the University of Alabama. She wanted to be a social worker. She's from Morgan County. She wanted to move to Pensacola. She was killed on April 27, 2011 at 31 Beverly Heights, which is just east of DCH Regional Medical Center, as was Will Stevens. Will was killed at the same place. They're friends from high school. Will actually played baseball for Stillman College, a smaller college in the city of Tuscaloosa. And Lauren Brown was also at 31 Beverly Heights. The three friends from school, they were together, and each of them died. Lauren was actually a student at Shelton State. She was planning on transferring to the University of Alabama. You talk with these surviving parents, and they're brokenhearted today. I spent some time with Lauren's mom back in the spring. We talked a long time. It was healing for all of us. But this is where we have fouled up. In our enterprise, we seem to have a disconnect with real people. And for everybody in this room, your job is to serve people, period, and that's it. And if you're disconnected with them, then you've got a problem, and we've got a problem. Everybody said that Miss Minnie Ackland was one of the sweetest people in Tuscaloosa. She was killed when her car was lofted on Interstate 359. Why was anybody driving during that tornado warning? Why? I want to know. People that knew her, they say that she was listening to gospel music, some type of CD or some digital type music, and she had no way of getting the information. We've got to get tornado warnings into cars. We've got to. This is Angel Stillwell. She went to Piedmont Middle School. In fact, I spoke to her class 6 months before she was killed on April 27, 2011. This affected every socioeconomic group, every one of them. Haley and Mikey Kreider, students at Concord Elementary School. This is out here west of Birmingham. They were killed April 27, 2011. Miss Bessie Brewster, she lives in Pratt City. Everybody said she had the best smile in the neighborhood. She lost her life on that day. Let me tell you something. When you start to learn who these people are, and it's my goal to memorize the names of all 252 before I die. I don't want their memories going away. Jonathan and Justin Doss, they played football, youth football in Cordova in Walker County. Let me say this, people that live in rural areas are discriminated against in many ways. And I'm from Butler County, Alabama, and you don't even know where that is. But maybe that's my heart is from rural South Alabama. In a lot of TV markets, if there's a tornado warning for the city and the suburbs where all these people live, they'll be on TV. But the minute it leaves, they go back to Freak of the Week or whatever programs on television. They don't care about small town USA. Well, I do. And you know, I know some of you in this room are just mad at you, were stinking mad at me for cutting off some program you're trying to watch when I'm doing tornado coverage for some rural county. I got 3 words for you. I don't care, and I'm sorry. I don't care. Goodness, guys, y'all can watch this stuff on anything now, these iPads, phones, whatever. You can watch this any way you want to. We live in a new, better world. This is Alan and Angie Sanders. They lived in Shoal Creek Valley in St. Clair County. This is between Asheville and Raglan. They were there with their 3 daughters. The 3 daughters survived. The 2 parents were killed. Why this happened that way, I have no idea. We'll find out at some other place, at some other time. Carrie Lowe left behind a husband and a newborn. She was a nurse. Her last social media post is very haunting. And again, I don't dwell on this stuff. I just can't let it crawl up in my brain to play mental gymnastics all day. We've got some work to do. Ashley Harrison, she was 2 weeks away from graduating the University of Alabama, graduating. Her boyfriend was Carson Tinker, the long football snapper for the University of Alabama football team. She was killed April 27, 2011, when her body was lofted. She died when she was aloft. Where her body was found, there's a memorial that is still there today in an area of Tuscaloosa back behind my old high school. And graduation was postponed. Later in the year, they held graduation. This is Dave and Darlene Harrison. That's Ashley's parents. Let me tell you something. If you can't see the pain in her eyes, you've got no business doing your job. And this is what drives me. I've never lost a child like this in this way. I can't put myself in their shoes. But after talking with so many of these survivors, I know the real pain that they feel. And this doesn't have to happen. We've got to do a better job. If you want to know more about this day, this is a great book. I don't promote books. I'm not in the book business. I have nothing to do with this. Kim Cross wrote the book, but let me tell you what, she got the science right. She got the passion of the day right. She got the stories of those involved in this thing right. It's a great read, and I listen to books. I don't have time to read because I am busy. I'm always going somewhere, but I listen to books in the car. But if you ever want to learn more about that outbreak, and boy, she got the stinking science right. Most authors don't in these weather disaster books. You might want to learn. So, my challenge to social scientists, why did everybody die? Number 1 reason, what do you think it is? And some of you might be mad at me when I say this, but again, I don't care. Number 1 reason people died, siren mentality. The idea that you're supposed to hear some magical air raid siren in your home or in your car before a tornado. And that's killing Alabamians, left and right, north and south, east and west. And I know y'all spend a lot of time getting grants, and a lot of you are in a very hard position because Alabamians love these things. Alabamians are in love with these things. If there's any one place where me and this state, we disagree, it's this. But I'm done with it. I don't care. I just don't care. You've got to do the right thing. They have never been effective at reaching people in a structure. When were these things developed? World War I. Last time I checked, this is 2017. And they do serve a purpose. They reach a limited number of people, not inside, but outside. And we've got to do a better job. And look, some of you might have even been there. For some reason, I accepted a talk, and I was not in a good position to talk because I was a little emotional after this day. And I said something I probably shouldn't have said. It was down in, I forget where we met, Auburn or somewhere. But I said, in my opinion, every one of these sirens in the state ought to be taken down and burned. And that way, you know you won't hear them. But that's not right. If they serve a few people outdoors, let's leave them up where you can afford that, where it's possible. But we've got to do a better job of teaching their people that this is not how you get tornado warnings. And what's amazing, it didn't really dawn on us until the next year. You guys ever been to Clay before? It's just right over here. We had a tornado come right through Center Point, which is right here, and it went on through Clay. I don't even need to see Christina's picture. I don't even need to look at her. I can close my eyes. I can see her face. But we had an EF3 tornado in the pre-dawn hours. Many of our tornadoes don't happen in the afternoon, these, you know, the lovely TV tornado outbreaks where you've got daylight and you can see these things. Most of them are rain-wrapped. They happen in the middle of the night. And Christina was killed up here in Clay that morning. The grieving father said the family didn't hear the what? Siren. Come on! That's what I've done with it. I don't care who at the time, our youngest son was 16, same age as Christina. She was a brilliant student at Shays Valley High School. The head of the weather service here, Jim Stefkovich at the time, he had a 16-year-old daughter. And it really hit home, and it was like this alarm just went off, a screaming alarm. We've got a problem with this stinking siren mentality. And I'm not throwing her parents under the bus. Her parents are Daryl and Carol Heichelbeck. They become good friends of mine, and they want me to share this story. They want to be standing here in front of everybody in this room with tears running down their cheeks, begging you to stop it, trying to think that you're going to hear these things or imply that you can use a warning siren as some way of getting a tornado warning. It killed Christina, their daughter, and they're brokenhearted because of that. We've got to move on. We teach that you've got to have two ways of getting a tornado warning. What's way number one? It's kind of old school, but still works. What's way number one? Yeah. Just between us girls, this is really stale technology. I mean, this is really stale. The minute I walk out that door, it's the best thing that's ever happened. I mean, you need one. That's our message. We have to present a unified message as a weather enterprise. And really in the integrated warning team, EMs are part of the team. We're all in it together. And, but the reason it's stale, you know the reason, right? We've not warned by counties in how long? 10 years? These are not storm-based warning systems. These are county-based systems, and that's not good because they give the illusion of false alarms. But, you know, by golly, they work. And if the Heichelbecks would have had one in their... Let me tell you another thing off the record. They had one in their house. They had the thing unplugged because it went off so many times. And I understand that. I really do understand that. And I told them, I don't want y'all beating yourself up over this. My wife has unplugged ours because it goes off way too many times. That's a function of this thing being county-based instead of being storm-based. But if they would have had that sucker plugged in, Christina would be alive today. Everybody in your county's got to have one. Everybody, everybody, especially those that live in where? Mobile homes? So that's way number one. What's the second way? Yeah, that's that fancy phone you got in your pocket. Y'all are checking the tweeter, aren't you? That's okay. I don't care if people play with your phone when I'm talking. I don't care. That's great. I have to live in this world. So you guys know more about this than me. Technically, in theory, you should receive tornado warnings on your phone without doing anything. What is that? Wireless emergency alerts, WEA. You should, in our state, you get three things. What do you get? Tornado warnings, flash flood warnings, and? Yeah, the third is Amber Alerts. You don't, and I'll say this one, have you ever had your phone go off for an Amber Alert? Woo! That thing went off one night about 2 o'clock. I think I missed a tornado. I was home. I'm thinking, ah! It was an Amber Alert. And listen, if my child was missing, I'd want that thing toned out too. I mean, I got no problem with it. But people can go in there and turn that stuff off, but you have to go in there and turn it off in settings. We prefer for people to have a decent warning app. Those of you that know me well, we call most weather apps, what do we call them? Crap apps, yeah. They're automated. Nobody looks at them. They give you a little number, a high, low, and a chance of rain. That doesn't tell you anything about uncertainty or whatever. It just doesn't. But out of all the warning apps I've looked at, this is my favorite. And again, I don't sell apps. I have nothing to do with these people. I know them, but I have nothing to do with them financially. Zero, nothing. But the warning app we prefer is made by a company called Weather Decision Technologies, WDT, and it's just called Weather Radio. And I'm not selling apps, but I'm just telling you that's the one I have. My wife has it. Our two boys have it. I know the infrastructure. I know how the sausage is made. I don't know much about WEA. We've learned a lot about it. We do a show called Weather Brains. We've been doing it for 12 years, and it's not for Joe Q Public. It's for weather freaks. But we've had some guests to kind of help us learn more about WEA in the last 6 months or so, but still, I know how this works. And the nice thing about this is that it's based on the GPS chip in your phone. WEA is not. WEA is based on cell towers. and that can be kind of wonky sometimes. But this is based on the GPS chip. If you want tornado warnings, that's all you get. You can control everything that you receive, and it really works well. So we're trying to get the people to get two ways of getting the warning. A weather radio, that is the baseline. Every Alabama house should have them. And let me just say this, too, about weather radios. You got families in your county or your jurisdiction that can't afford a $30 weather radio. You guys know we have abject poverty in this state. I know this state better than anybody in this room. Now, you might know your little spot, but in terms of the state, I know it pretty well. And we really do have a lot of people that cannot afford a $30 radio, and somehow we have to get it in their hands. And a lot of counties and cities and municipalities have done a great job of doing that. They have to be programmed, batteries in there, you plug the sucker up and you're good to go. A lot of our folks are very low income, and they might not have one of these iPhone 10s or whatever. I mean, you know, they have an older phone that doesn't support this stuff. But that weather radio is still the baseline. And we got to do something about cars. We've got to do something about cars. We're working on that. Another reason people died that day, it's our fault. We fouled this up. Polygon warnings are not understood. We often throw this stuff out and we don't explain it. Like I've talked about, we went away from county warnings about 10 years ago. We now issue warnings based on geometric shapes called, thanks for playing. A couple of tornado warnings. Got velocity couplet here. This is near Pondville in Bibb County. And this is Pondville right here. That's the Bibb County rotation. This is close to Sawyerville down in Hale County. We got 2 tornado warnings. You know, those 2 tornado warnings don't exactly look like counties, do they? No. Tornadoes are small. Counties are huge. There is no need to alarm an entire county for a tornado. There's no need for that. It gives the illusion of false alarms, and it causes people to do things they don't need to do. But here's the problem. The first warning down here includes parts of Hale, Perry, Bibb, and Tuscaloosa counties. Now, people hear that Tuscaloosa County and, ooh, man, they don't even stop to listen. You got people up here in the city of Tuscaloosa, the city of Northport, campus of the University of Alabama, doing their stuff. They're going through their tornado precautions. They are digging a hole, whatever they do. And they were never, ever, ever, ever in a warning. Never. And everybody says, well, it's best to be safe than sorry. Well, I understand that, but these polygons are designed for massive amounts of error, okay? And let me tell you, in some cases, when you start doing your tornado precautions, it's kind of dangerous. One of my little side jobs, I don't talk about this very much, I am the chairman of the board of a large tertiary care hospital in Birmingham. Have been for 12 years. Makes no sense, but I'm interested in health care. My hospital is called Grandview Medical Center. We're on US 280 here. It's a beautiful building we are busy. But I know what happens whenever we have to go into tornado code. And I know the danger involving surgery, where they're having to stop some procedures, where we're having to get patients out in the hall. You guys know this. I mean, this stuff is not easy. And every time a warning goes out, I'd like to think everybody in the warning process understands what happens when you do that. You can't just be hitting that button every time you think there's a little couplet on radar. You've got to do some thinking here. But there was no need for anybody to do anything. And we had the same problem with this one. Tornado warning in effect for parts of Bibb, Shelby, Jefferson counties. Whoa! Everybody up here in Birmingham was doing the same thing. And they didn't have to do it. They were never, ever, ever under a warning. So we try and tell people whenever warnings are issued, if you're in the polygon, you respect it. You do something. And if you're not, don't worry about it. And we have to do a better job of teaching people how these things actually work. We kill people by not telling them what to do in their safe place, the stuff you got to have. What's the number one thing you've got to have in that safe place? Helmets for everybody, and that includes adults. We've got to do a better job of telling people you've got to have some stuff. There's a marvelous peer-reviewed study by UAB that shows that by having a bicycle helmet, a batting helmet, that enhances your chance of survival. Most people, when they die in EF4, EF5 tornadoes, how do they die? They're lofted. Their bodies are lofted. They die from shrapnel wounds to the skull in the air. That's how Ashley Harrison died. If Ashley Harrison would have had a helmet on, she'd be alive today. And over and over and over. One of my best friends out here in Oak Grove, he lived in Rock Creek, Matthew Seals. His boy Nathan, he was 8 years old, April 8th, 1998. He'd be alive today if he had a helmet on. We've got to have helmets for everybody, including adults, even old people like me. Every human life is precious. Everyone, not just children. We like people to have hard-soled shoes. People in Tuscaloosa were walking to DCH toward that light. They were bleeding to death. They were like zombies walking in there from Alberta City, and their feet were in shreds. because they had on socks or they were barefooted. And air horns, portable air horns. That's the one we teach. A lot of times if you're seriously injured, you can't force air through a whistle. You can't verbalize your need for help, but that air horn will allow first responders to find them. Helmets, hard-sole shoes, air horns, those are the three things we're pushing right now. And of course, the other stuff is common sense. Y'all know all that. All right, so next up, this stuff I'll talk about later. But guess what? Let me just say this. This is a good crowd to talk to for just a second. I got 5 more minutes, man. Tell me. Oh, Lord, don't tell me that, man. So everybody, now y'all are all EMA people, right? No? Police? Okay. Well, yeah. Well, guess who you all are? You are all broadcasters. Everybody in this room is a broadcaster because of this. And a lot of you hate it with a passion. I can't stand that stuff. You know, it makes me want to barf. And look, I'll be honest. I wrote a post recently called Bile and Weapons Grade Ignorance about dealing with Facebook. You ought to walk a mile in my shoes. Wow. We had the Bama Booms yesterday, you know, and I'm trying to gather some information. By the way, y'all know what happened, don't you? Y'all know everything. That's it, UFO, thank you. We'll put that on the air tonight. A reliable source tells me it was a UFO. Well, hey, no, I won't tell who it was. I mean, a reliable source. But, you know, I was just trying to get some facts on who heard it and was there any type damage to windows or anything. And before you know it, they were fighting about Trump and Roy Moore and all this stuff. I think, guys, can you give it a break for just 5 minutes? I'm trying to gather some information here. What's the matter with you people? Oh, but listen, yeah, bingo. Hey, y'all have to live in this world. I don't care if you hate it. If you're going to do your job right, if you're going to deal with the public, if you're going to be a public information person, you have to deal with it. You have to. You have to embrace it. It is an 800-pound gorilla that will eat you alive, but you've got to be stronger and better than that. And for what we tell our people, don't ever use this as a way of getting tornado warnings. Don't you dare. And in our state, the greatest reach is on Facebook. I checked my Facebook page this morning. It says 444,000 people like me. I know that's not true. You know what? There are days 5 people don't like me. There are days when my wife doesn't like me. What is the deal? If people don't like me, they do that because they want to get severe weather information in their news feed. What's the problem? Well, if you're on Facebook, and most of you have a Facebook page. I have a Facebook page with my EMA or police, which is great. You need one. You need one. But the organic reach is now down to less than 2%. So when I post something over here, less than 2% of people see it in their news feed. And that's how people consume Facebook. That's their life now. They walk around the day looking at their phone, looking at that news feed. They don't go over to your page unless they really, really work hard to do that. 2%, that's not much. You should never use social media as a way of getting tornado warnings. The tweeter, and Twitter doesn't throttle it, and it's real time. Facebook also throttles time. Your message might be delayed for hours, if not days. Twitter, it's an interesting monster. In Alabama, it is not the second most important platform. And y'all need to know this. The most important platform to reach people by far is Facebook. And listen, it's a great way to engage. We get pictures in, we send pictures out, we answer questions. And let me just say this. I've seen many EMA pages where people ask questions. And you know what they hear when they ask a question? Crickets. Where are you? And here's my favorite response. Everybody says, well, I don't have time. Do you think I got time? You look up busy in the dictionary, it's got my picture in there. I haven't slept since 1973, and I mean that. I mean, I'm not kidding. I have not slept right since 1973, when I was like a sophomore in high school. Why do I make time to answer questions? Well, number one, if they came to me, I should be honored. If they came to you, you should be honored. The people that you serve are the people that you serve. And to have a servant's heart, you should want to answer those questions. They came to you and not anybody else. And even if it's a bad question or a question that we perceive as stupid, there's a lot of people in the state that, quite frankly, are not that educated. And we have to resist that, temptation to say, what's up with this? And try and answer those. And I try and do that. So Facebook's a great way to do that. But you reach more people by far with Facebook. Twitter is not number 2. What's the number 2 social media platform in Alabama in terms of reaching people? Number 2 by far, it's not even close. What is it? Instagram. Not even close. So my question is, do you have an Instagram page? And if not, why not? Many adults, people my age, have gotten away from Facebook because of political rhetoric, all that stuff I talked about. They're sick of it. And Instagram is a happy little place with pictures. It really is. It's a happy place. I love it. But I push stories on Instagram about severe weather, and it's a marvelous way of communicating information to those that hang out over there. Many people now use that, and that's it. They don't even touch Facebook or Twitter. Twitter's number 3. Let me ask you this. How many of you have a Snapchat account in here for your agency? 1. Well, you got, listen, how do you reach 15 to 25-year-olds? Snapchat. They love Snapchat. You know why? You can't figure it out. Really. They love it because you can't figure it out. Guess what? I figured it out, and I'm good. I'm good at it. Why do I even care about Snapchat? It is my job to protect human life. And if a human life happens to be between the ages of 15 and 25, it doesn't matter. Is their life any less precious? So therefore, I hang out over there to establish a relationship with them. They'll never watch television. They're not going to watch what we do. But by golly, they'll follow me over there, and I can push out a tornado warning on Snapchat. I will reach people 15 to 25 years old that desperately need to know that sucker is coming. And you can do it too. I promise. But through all of these platforms, and there's more. I mean, I could keep going, but we teach people never, ever use this as a primary way of getting warnings. That's dangerous. This is on our back. This is one reason people died this day. Too many false alarms. It's on our back all the time in research. We saw it in the verbatims. I hear those warnings all the time, and nothing ever happens. That's on us. In 2011, what do you think the false alarm ratio was in Birmingham? 80. That's insane. And I'm not really faulting the Weather Service. I'm faulting all of us. What those guys were doing, they were trying to catch every tornado. My position is we're not that good. Most of these EF0, EF1 tornadoes, we can't catch those things. It's like whack-a-mole. You know, they're down for 2 minutes and they're gone. By the time a warning goes out, the tornado's gone. All of a sudden, I'm on television. There's nothing to show, nothing going on. It's a disaster. We've got to focus on the big ones. We have to go back to basic science. And we did that. Look what that sucker was last year, 21. Now, it's ticked up a little bit this year. It's closer to 30. I never thought it'd be under 35, never. But it's still under 35. It's 30 this year so far. But that's unbelievable. Now, we didn't have a lot in 2016. It was quiet, but that's just remarkable. That from 80 to 21, we were issuing warnings for high-base storms where the LCLs were over 1,000 meters. That's insane. We've never had a tornado with a high-base storm here. Going back to basic science. So tornado warnings mean a lot more now than they used to. But real quick, and I got to go to work here in a minute. The deal is, where we are now in this process, this is what, 6.5 years ago. We are now in the roll up our sleeves and let's get to work phase. And I would encourage you to join us in that. And that we all have some work to do. We have to work on the things we've talked about. There's some things we don't even know about yet. Friday, I'll be in Huntsville at the Vortex Southeast meeting. Anybody know about Vortex Southeast? Verification of the origin of tornadoes experiment Southeast, just for the Southeast United States. We've got physical scientists, social scientists working on our tornadoes down here. And we've got to have a meeting. I'm on the steering committee, and I'm very excited about some of the research that's in the field and the stuff we're going to learn. We've got a lot of work to do. I mean, the stuff I've shared with you today is just scratching the surface. But one of these days, a tornado outbreak like this is going to happen on your watch. And you don't want that many people to die on your watch, so we have to be better. But again, this is what it's about. One of the things that really helped me, and I don't know if you can even do this, but after a couple of weeks, I couldn't get off the grid. For years, when it was over, when the tornado outbreak ended, I could stop and get off the grid. That doesn't happen anymore because of social media. I mean, the traffic that goes through my social media accounts, for some reason, I'm this town crier of Alabama. I'm the information bureau. I don't know why. That Bama Boom thing yesterday, goodness. How many messages do you think I got within the first hour across all platforms? We counted them last night. How many messages about the Bama Booms? Over 5,000 in 1 hour. Stunning. If there's something going on around here, I know about it, which is really strange because a lot of it has nothing to do with weather, okay? I'm not a news guy. They send me all these traffic wrecks and everything. I don't know anything about that, but if it's informational, I pass it along. And I had to work that social media, and it just never stopped. And finally, we stopped and we were supposed to play a baseball game. Again, our youngest played baseball, and we just blew off baseball for a couple of weekends and went up into some rural parts of the state and helped people. We found this family of 11 in Barton's Chapel, which is in Walker County near Cordova, that had no help. And to make a long story short, we helped them get into a new house. This was very therapeutic and healing for me. That's what heals you up. And some of you in this room are carrying baggage. That 1974 outbreak when I was a senior in high school, my hobby back then was ham radio. And by the way, these fancy phones you got, y'all know they're not going to work one day. They are not going to work one day. EMP, whatever it is, it's not going to happen. And all of a sudden it's going to be back to us guys on ham radio. But we had no cell phones in '74, and they positioned a lot of volunteers in different places. And my high school gave me 3 days off to volunteer. For some reason, they put me in Jasper at the hospital. The hospital in Jasper in 1974 was the People's Hospital. It was not Walker Medical Center like it is now. And for some reason, they put me in that emergency room. And you see this all the time. I don't know how you do what you do, but I saw the nature of those grotesque wounds coming in that ER. It gave me night terrors for years. I had night terrors for years, and this brought back some of those. And I've never talked about that night publicly. I've never talked about that night privately. I never will. I have nothing to say about it. But I know some of you carry some baggage, and I sure do. And boy, this helps. This really helps when you just stop and get off the grid and go help somebody. That's why we're here, and that's the nature of all of our jobs. A few case studies real quick, and we'll stop. This is a church, and of course, they didn't have service going on in this particular case. We've had a lot of Wednesday night tornado outbreaks here. April 8th, 1998. We've had some loss of life in churches. Anybody remember Goshen United Methodist Church, Palm Sunday, 1994? 20 people died inside that church doing a Palm Sunday drama. 10 were kids, 10 were adults, 20 died, including the 4-year-old daughter of the pastor. The girl that died was Hannah Clem. The pastor was Kelly Clem. I've become very good friends with them. In fact, I was in Dale Clem's church. Dale is pastor of First United Methodist Church in Anniston today. He still serves, and they still grieve over that. But a tornado warning was issued 12 minutes in advance of the tornado, 12 minutes, and they never heard it. And if they would have gotten everybody out of the sanctuary into hallways and small bathrooms, they'd all be alive today. And I think about that night a lot, and I can't really fault anybody there. We're not in the finger pointing business about the blame game. There's no point in that. We've all had a part of the blame, but if they would have had a weather radio, all those people would be alive today. You've seen this, roof gone, walls gone. This guy's fine, he was in the hall. I studied many of these. I'm an old engineer. My first major in college was electrical engineering, but I love engineering, and I'd love to study techniques and design of houses and structures. And this is an older house out in Pleasant Grove, but every bathroom, every closet, every hall was fine. Business in Tuscaloosa, they're fine. They were in the lower interior hall. This is down near Marbury in North Autauga County to the Chilton County line. 3 people were killed here. By the way, this was April 15th, 2011. We call that the forgotten outbreak. What happened a few weeks later, everybody forgot about this day. 3 people died here. They didn't get out. What percentage of Alabamians live in mobile homes away from cities? Anybody know? Last number I saw was 71%. Now, this is away from municipalities. Away from municipalities. 71%. So we got a problem here, and oddly enough, we didn't have that much loss of life April 27th from people in mobile homes, but most people that die in our state die in mobile homes or cars. They're death traps. And like cars, we got to do something about this problem. Everybody in a mobile home in the state's got a fire alarm, sprinkler deal, not a sprinkler, but a smoke alarm. But hardly any of them have weather radios. And my position is you're probably going to have more tornado threats than fire threats in your life. And we've just got to do something about that. And here's the other problem. Let's say that they've got a weather radio. They've got that weather radio by WDT on their phone. Man, they got that thing working, and they hear it, and there's a tornado, and they've got 9 minutes to do something. For a lot of folks in mobile homes in this state, they cannot go to a shelter in 9 minutes. They can't get to a shelter in 15 minutes. And we can't always provide that kind of warning. Many people live in our state in mobile homes. They live in property that's been handed down from generation to generation. They live in very rural areas, and they have nowhere to go. And we've got to come up with some type of solution. This is a hard puzzle. For mobile home communities, that's kind of easy. You build a storm shelter in the mobile home community, but what do you do about these isolated families? And this was fairly isolated. There weren't that many people around them. So, real quick, let me throw my stuff up here and we'll do some questions, and I got to go back to work. I don't even think my stuff is in here. By the way, show this. We had some heroes this day that didn't get credit. You probably never heard of John Olshu or Ben Greer. This was the Tuscaloosa tornado 40 minutes before it got into town. They were down there as volunteers with a dash cam, and that got on television. Now, let me tell y'all something. That triggered a lot. And the only number I care about is 252, the people that died. I don't care about anything else, but I do know there will be a time to celebrate those that lived on this day, and many that lived were because of John and Ben. That video right there caused people to do something. I can't put cameras everywhere, but this caused a lot of things to happen. This caused a tornado emergency to be issued. Y'all understand that's a step above a warning. That means we're looking at that sucker. It's large. It is life-threatening, and we're seeing it. It's so real. On the air, you call, this is a tornado emergency for the cities of Tuscaloosa and Northport. Go, if you have anybody down there, call them, text them now. And you hear, my voice changes when this stuff goes on. And what's funny, a lot of people never knew this. There was a landowner screaming at them at the time. He was claiming he was running over his septic tank lines. I mean, he was almost into an altercation with these guys. And he was trying to say, sir, we are live on television this is a deadly situation. That's a long backstory on that. But anyway, they somehow settled him down, and they were able to stay with us. And at the same time this was happening, we had the one coming through Cordova, the second tornado of Cordova right there. But we just need more volunteers and people like this out in the field to help us. All right, anybody have any questions, comments, or thoughts? I got to go to work. It's 53 after the hour. I've talked way too long. Yes, sir.
Your app, you had it for a while.
Yeah, the new owners didn't like it. They wanted everything into one app, so it's gone. And that's fine. I mean, everything that was on there is on the new one, but it's just a good old ownership change. See, y'all don't deal with ownership changes in your line of work. I do. But they've given us a lot of tools that we needed, so I can't gripe about it. But yeah, it went away. All right, guys.
James, our ownership changes come in the form of election.
That's true. There you go. There you go. Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to say, as a member of law enforcement and member of public safety, that what you guys do goes unnoticed a lot by the public, and I think that if people could hear how your job affects you both positively and negatively, I think people would, excuse my language, get up off their ass and actually get to points of safety so that they don't become that statistic, because we saw in Madison County, Limestone County, the one that crossed Highway 72, people were in their cars, we were on duty yelling at people, get the hell off the road, get somewhere, grabbing people off the street and telling them to get inside, because they're so ignorant to what it is. And then I see the bashing. Brad Travis in our area, bless him, he catches it. I mean, and I see it and I'm like, I really want to go and strangle these people.
So thank you. I appreciate that. We cut off a basketball game Christmas Day. This was in 2015. Joy to the world, peace on earth, goodwill toward men. The first email I got, you know what it said? You should have been aborted by a coat hanger. Thinking, wow. This was a tornado that came through the southwest part of Birmingham. It really could have, we were very blessed that we didn't have loss of life down there. But that's okay. We have no feelings left to hurt. I mean, y'all can't hurt our feelings. We don't have any left. So, but thank you for your support. I mean, and we know there's a lot of people that support us. And I do think sometimes we get so hung up on these